Ardora, Lex Luthor's wife from the planet Lexor, where everyone adores him, but he does not stay. Ardora, and you've got to hit the R hard, otherwise you're just saying Adora, and then it's just a She-Ra crossover. Well, Ardora was the winner of the members' vote, both on YouTube and Kofi. She beat out La Sangre and The Boom another time. Today I'm excited to be talking about her because her history is very interesting, and time of recording it looks like we're about to get another version of her, this time in the Absolute universe. Because in Absolute Evil, Lex is talking to his wife, whom he seemingly has an idyllic relationship with, named Dora, and that version does have a very similar character design to her classic Silver Age look. But whether that is a version of her or not, Ardora is an interesting character, and we're going to get to go through several eras as we discuss her. And she has a decent amount of continuity attached to her, which is also interesting for a character who debuts in the Silver Age, even though she also suffers a name change between her first appearance and the second, and that's only one issue. I'm Sash, this is Casually Comics, and we're going to start off in Silver Age romance time, the best time, a questionable time. Ardora debuts in an issue that's quite significant for DC lore, but not because she's in it. It's significant because it's the first team-up of Brainiac and Lex Luthor, Superman 167 from the year 1964, the team of Luthor and Brainiac. It's written by Carrie Bates and Edmund Hamilton, the story being submitted by teen Carrie Bates, I believe 14, with art by Kurt Swan and inks by George Klein. This is also the issue that retcons Brainiac into being a machine. Before that issue, he was just presented as another alien. This issue showcases him as a machine, deliberately constructed to look like a human, they say. Lex discovers this about him after he escapes from prison, and he's using his time-space thought scanner to find the smartest ally he can to take down Superman. This is a really solid issue. They both end up double-crossing each other in different ways, and it sets up the dynamic that many still maintain. But on their quest together to gather materials, they stop off on the planet Lexor, which was introduced a few issues earlier in Superman 164. In that issue, Lex ended up saving the planet from their drought through his scientific abilities, with some help from Superman, but people didn't know that. He chose that planet for a fair fight with Superman because it had a red sun. Now his actions there make him a hero, and he's also able to convince the people there that Superman is evil.
I found your tracks when I returned to the ship and trailed you here, Luthor. We can finish our fight now.
Is this stranger your friend, Great Luthor?
No, he's my enemy.
If he's the enemy of our great hero, he must be evil. We will kill him.
No, let go of him. I vow to fight him on even terms in single combat. All right, cue the Star Trek fight music.
Now, as mentioned, the two do end up teaming up to help get water to the planet, but the people don't know that Superman was involved in that, and so they end up building a statue to Lex. They also rename their whole planet after him. So that's the status of the planet when Brainiac and Lex show up in issue 167. Finally, Luthor lands on the one world in the universe where he's considered a hero. Luthor, the radioactive material you need is in this museum of old machines. Let's steal it.
Luthor, the great hero who brought water to our drought-stricken world, he's returned! See, great Luthor, how we've honored you for your good deed with this statue.
Lex can't bring himself to rob these people. He does actually like them. It vacillates between seeming like it's genuine and also just because they're worshiping him and that's stroking his ego. But some of that kind of analysis is when casting back from a contemporary reader perspective. There are things there to pull on, but they're not fully explored. At the time, it seems more like it's the general push and pull they would do with Lex, where sometimes he would do good things, sometimes not. But right away, you see that there is potential for some really deep mining here. Now, it's here we meet Ardora under her first name. I'm Thrala, and like everyone here, I idolize you. Couldn't you stay with us?
This girl, she thinks I'm fine. Good. No, I can't stay.
Next moment, a farewell kiss.
She likes me for myself. Maybe someday I'll return here.
Now, this is going to be a continual question for the reader. Why doesn't Lex just stay here? It's something that a Bronze Age story much later is going to try and tackle. And it's going to get very dark. This story sets up Ardora at first as essentially a Lex groupie. By the issue's end, through wheeling and dealing that Lex and Brainiac pulled with the people of Kandor to save Superman's life, they're allowed to go free. And Lex returns to Lexor, where she's there to greet him. We next see her in the very next issue, where Lex is still on Lexor. Brainiac left. He had also brainwashed Lex in the last issue to forget that he was a living machine. There is also a note in that one that explains some Legion stuff, but we'll leave that for another time. Now we're looking at issue 168, Luthor, Superhero. This one is just by Edmund Hamilton, but the art team is the same. Also, Ardora's hair is mistakenly colored black on the cover. In this issue, we do see that Lex is working to improve the lives of the people of Lexor. He's re-implementing a lot of lost old technologies, although he does still sort of have ulterior motives to it. He is still looking for ways to also enhance himself. And here, for some reason, despite having the exact same character design, so being the same character, Thrala is now Ardora. Maybe they just hated the name Thrala. Maybe they forgot. Lex is obsessed with the idea that one day Superman is going to come for him. And he's not wrong. Superman is already on the way. He's convinced he can't just leave Lex there. He's up to no good. They're both convinced the other is out to get them. But Luthor has a secret reason for these particular experiments. But you've already worked long hours here, Luthor. Surely the work can wait.
I may have little time, Ardora. Sooner or later, Superman will come here from Earth, looking for me.
Superman. Even to hear his name makes me shiver. Why does he pursue you and persecute you so when you're so fine and noble?
It's a long story, Ardora. Too long for now.
Run along and I'll see you later. She loves me. The people here idolize me because I've done things for them. Now, if I can use the ancient science of this world to give me artificial superpowers, I can keep Superman from spoiling my paradise here. Lex is actually not up to no good for the most part in the story, aside from the lie that he's this great hero and kind of working to enhance himself just in case. But his and Superman's hero-villain relationship will continually ruin Lex's time on Lexor, even if it is often his own fault. Superman sneaks into a museum exhibit being set up by Lex of Superman being defeated, so he's able to sneak in as his own statue. But there at the museum, he sees some rainbow crystals, and they have this odd effect on him, and he just needs to take them. The story at first plays this like he's flat out stealing them, which is very amusing and does lead to it looking like he is the villain that Lex says he is. The only way he's even able to escape from the museum is by revealing he's not a statue, and that scares Ardora. Dear Luthor, soon everyone will do you honor for your feats, like your fight with evil Superman. But I wanted to be the first one here. And before the eyes of Lexorian girl, the one who to her is the greatest villain in the universe, comes to life.
Superman, oh no, it can't be. It's too terrible.
Please be quiet. No one will harm you.
But a horrified Ardora flees frantically. Help! Help!
That's done it. I've got to get away fast, but I won't leave these crystals.
In the museum, it's not just the figure of evil Superman. It's alive! It's alive!
See, Superman is just ruining his own PR on the planet Lexor. Now, Lex is able to give himself superpowers, but there's some paralleling they do here with Superman. They're going to continue to do so as these stories go on, which is that he ends up needing to set himself up as a superhero called the Defender. And by doing so, he ends up having to replicate the whole secret identity gimmick that Superman has going on to keep it from Ardora. Though I'm not exactly sure why, because he's in a situation where all the people adore him and would seemingly be very supportive, but they pull out the old excuse of, but what if someone kidnaps Ardora?
And he's here on Lexor. Superman, your evil enemy.
You go home where you'll be safe, Ardora. Superman will be taken care of. If I use my superpowers openly, someday enemies of mine might try to threaten me by holding Ardora hostage. I better adopt a new identity when using my superpowers. Lex's Defendor costume is not his finest work. And for the rest of the issue, Ardora is established as a ride-or-die love interest. And also they give her a couple more of those classic tropes, like almost recognizing that Lex is the Defender. But it's different. She's not in love with the Defendor, she's completely loyal to Lex. You can see it in how they draw her. Now it turns out that Superman is not just a thief or brainwashed by the crystals or something, but instead, here's the explanation. He's not just bringing them to his fortress for his collection. These crystals are part of what lets the downfall of the civilization, because there was all this tech that Lex found in 164. Well, it turns out that looking at these crystals makes one unintelligent. And so it's kind of hinted at that this is why the society fell into disarray. So Lex agrees to let Superman take those away. To get those baleful crystals away from my people, I'll let you go free. But you must promise to destroy them and not betray the Defender's identity. But remember, our feud isn't ended.
Agreed. Our feud is still on.
This issue has 2 chapters. They're both about Lex. It's an all Lex issue. It even says so on the cover. So in part 2, we get to see that despite Superman leaving, Lex is still obsessing over him, even though Ardora is literally all over him. You have a palace, a splendid laboratory, and me. Can't you forget the Earth, Lex, dear? It's Superman. I can't forget Ardora. That rat drove me into exile. I'll have my revenge soon. Exile in my palace with my beautiful love interest and my worshipping, adoring fans. Exile! This is pre-businessman Lex, so he doesn't even have a company or anything to get back to. Also, Lex has invented some artificial red kryptonite that he knows will temporarily remove Superman's powers. But darling, how can you reach Earth to affect him with it? By means of this spaceship, built by the inventing machine. The extra compartment is for Superman when I bring him back, a prisoner. Under the red sun of our world, he'll have no powers. Even when the red kryptonite wears off, we'll imprison your enemy, Luthor. Woo! Ardora has some light villain vibes there. She went for that really quickly. Any enemy of her husband's is an enemy of hers. Off with his head. Farewell, Luthor. Good luck on your mission. Now, Ardora doesn't do anything for the rest of this issue but pine over Lex, who ends up overshooting where he's going and ending up in the past in 1906. And so Superman has to follow him to the past, where Lex is posing as a newspaper editor. And then to hide his identity, Superman ends up working at that paper for him. It's just shenanigans. But as Clark leaves, it's Superman. He's adopted the name of his friend Clark Kent while he hunts for me in this era. These fake whiskers I'm wearing fooled him completely. Luthor ends up trapping himself in prison in the present, and so he doesn't get to go back to Lexor. So he just leaves Ardora there, crying over him. Her normal status, sadly. The next time we're going to get to see that is in Action Comics 318. In the story The Death of Luthor, by the same creative team as this issue, and also from the year 1964. I love Lex's funeral attire. Also Brainiac's cape, he's styling. Now at the start of this story, Lex escapes from prison and frees to Lexor, where he should just stay. Presently, Lexor's capital city gives Luthor a hero's welcome. They're giving me a light beam welcome, the equivalent of a ticker tape welcome on Earth. I'm... choke. overcome. He saved our world once. And Ardora, the girl he loves, rides beside him. Now this time, Ardora isn't letting him go without sealing the deal. She wants them to get married, and he's down for that. Later, in the palace, a grateful people have built for their hero. And in this really interesting inset panel, Luthor, I feared you would never return. If only we could be married, be always together. See, this is another interesting thing they don't dwell on. She's doing everything she can to try and make him want to stay, and it's just not enough. Ardora, dear, I've missed you terribly. I want you to be mine forever. We'll get married tomorrow. The next day, the wedding takes place according to the ancient nuptial ceremonies of Lexor. The band of golden force which surrounds you symbolizes your union as man and wife. Great Luthor, the finest man in the universe. My husband. Yeah, he missed her so terribly that he never thinks about her except the issues that she appears in. Now, despite this, these stories are written as though Lex does love Ardora, just not as much as he hates Superman. And so he seeks to keep the darker parts of himself hidden. Although again, that could be read as self-interest. There's so many layers here. Now, Ardora is concerned that Superman is going to come for Lex. She's already seen it happen before, and she wants to know what they can do. Later, Ardora speaks of the one shadow on her happiness. I only hope that your lifelong enemy, that evil Superman who persecutes you, will never come after you here. I know Superman, and he'll come, but I won't let him shatter our marriage. Before I let him drag me back to an Earth prison, I'll kill him. You know, the fact that we also know that Superman is going to follow him to Lexor, it opens the question of, maybe he shouldn't, maybe he should leave him alone. Can they leave each other alone? Why can't they quit each other? Now, Ardora is a gentle soul. And so she makes Lex promise not to kill Superman. And he says, okay, but that just means he's going to figure out something else. He sets up Superman alarms to alert him when he arrives, and sets out when he does so. Ardora reminding him of his promise. And when he gets there, it looks like he gets into a fight with Superman, who punches him so hard into a statue that he dies. And here, Ardora displays a personality trait outside of loyalty to Lex, and it's adherence to her moral principles, because despite being devastated, she insists that they're better than Superman. They'll give him a trial. Also, this starts to lay some seeds that she's an influential person. They don't go into whether it's just as herself or because she's so attached to Lex, but people listen to her.
Oh, I can't stand this, Larthan. Please take me away.
Don't weep, Ardora. Nothing can bring Luthor back. But as prosecutor of Lexor, I promise you his murderer will receive full justice. I didn't say it was going to be a fair trial, just that he'd get one. And we get to see that next issue. And of course, Lex isn't dead. Ardora gets to be a part of this trial this issue. And so she gets to do one of the things she does best in this era. Cry. Can you tell us what Luthor said to you about Superman? Why did he put up those Superman alarms?
He said Superman hated him so much, he'd surely come after him again for a showdown, and I made Luthor promise not to kill Superman, but to let the law deal with him.
So what did Lex do? Lex staged his own death. He did this by taking coma pills that would last 5 days, and a Lexorian trial lasts 3, and then he figured they'd sentence Superman to execution, and because this is a Red Sun world, they could actually do it. He wrote his plans in English, knowing that the Lexorians would not be able to read it. There's also some shock restoration formula there, so Superman revives him to yell at him. I suspected that when it was testified you'd asked Ardora never to allow an autopsy of your body if something happened to you. Why would you request that unless you were planning to revive? Go ahead. Talk, he said calmly. Now, when the people see Lex is alive, they rejoice and assume he took the coma pills by accident. And so Superman's sentence is exile, and he leaves Lex on Lexor. Does he stay there? No, he doesn't. We next see Ardora in 1966 in Action Comics 332, The Super Vengeance of Lex Luthor, written by Leo Dorfman with pencils and inks by Al Plastino. In this, we open on Lex on a prison planet. He escapes, and Superman assumes that he's going to go to Lexor. And so Superman gets there first, using some teleportation technology that Earth is working on that you would think would be important, but it's just here for this story. When he gets there, he sees a button on Lex's statue, and there's a secret door. Did Superman touch that because the initials were LL and he couldn't resist? I like to think so. It's as he's doing this that Ardora comes to pine.
It's months since Lex left on a mission in space. I miss him so.
Looking at his statue seems to bring him close to me. Just then, it's Superman, the evil one who hounds Lex. How'd you get here? What do you want? He must be planning some more mischief against my husband. If I only had a weapon. I guess Ardora is more brutal now. That trial changed her. All that waiting, it's given her some sharp edges. A burning hatred of Superman, her rival, her husband's. It hasn't, but that would be interesting, wouldn't it? See again, more threads. Now instead, Superman is whisked away. He had a 5-minute time limit, but he's left the door open. And either Ardora has learned how to read English, or she has figured out how to use these tapes that he's left. What we have here is a shrine to villainy. Lex has kept memory discs of his crimes. Ardora assumes these must be heroic exploits, and she's really curious about them because Lex hasn't really told her a lot about himself, and she's kind of assumed it's because he's so humble. This record seems to be about Earth's undersea kingdom of Atlantis, and an experiment they began last year. Soon, within the dome, Our orders are to keep emerging from the shallow canals for longer periods until we become air breathers. But we must control the oxygen valves. Too much air will dry up the canal and kill us. Then there's Lex at last, but why is he opening those outside valves? I've cased this dome for weeks, men. Increasing the oxygen will knock out those Atlanteans and we can grab their valuable relics. As Ardora watches, stunned.
Look, Luthor! The extra oxygen dried up the canals. Without water, the Atlanteans died like stranded fish.
Who cares as long as we got the loot?
Wow, they died. In a 1966 code-approved story, they died. They really wanted to hammer home how evil Lex was. Sorry, I'm just very excited. Lots of times they don't go there in this era. And now, Ardora knows everything. Can you imagine updating this story? What a great scene it would be of her just going through tape after tape after tape. And this is a big moment for her. Everything she thought she knew about her husband was a lie. He's not who he said he was, but he's also done good things. But he has this past. Also, Superman was that mean about him, and all the things she's thought, just everything collapsed in an instant. And so she even begins to question herself. How could she be so wrong? How could she be such a bad judge of character? This is a huge moment for her.
Lex, I know the truth about you. I listened to one of the disc tapes you had hidden away. Why did I fall in love with a criminal? Why?
Ardora, how'd you find those records? After Ardora tells her story, Luthor goes berserk with fury. So Superman betrayed my secret and ruined the only happiness I ever had. I'll get that rat for this. I'll destroy him. Destroy him!
Lex, don't go. I love you, in spite of everything.
She was still willing to stay with him. But Lex's Superman obsession, it's more important than his marriage or his happiness. He can't confront his own flaws or think about how this is actually his fault. This is Superman's fault. Do you see all of the unmined pathos? Lex then embarks on a plan to drive Superman insane. He's gonna start saving him, start making it seem like things aren't quite right with the world. And so Ardora is once more just being used as motivation. We see him thinking about her being sad, and him blaming Superman. She gets a panel in 333, and then she gets to do more in 335. After another panel of her being sad. I swore I'd break his spirit. Look at my poor wife Ardora, back there on the planet Lexor. She's been heartbroken ever since Superman told her I was a criminal. But I'm getting my revenge in spades. You can go back to your marriage. She said she'd still have you. Also, he didn't tell her. I think your constant absences may leave her more heartbroken than this. But, you know, what do I know about intergalactic long-distance marriage? Now, this issue has an incredibly morally dubious outcome for Ardora. Brainiac and Lex once more end up teaming up throughout this little mini arc, and by the end, they go back to Lexor. But Superman engineered something that goes with them on their journey, and so when Ardora greets Lex, she's just really happy to see him.
Lex, my beloved, my hero, I'm so happy to see you. I'm always afraid that evildoer Superman might harm you when you're away from Lexor.
Ardora, sweetheart. Somehow she's forgotten I'm a villain. What a glorious relief. Superman used some of the amnesia gas that he has that targets bad memories on Ardora. He used it so that she would forget Lex was a criminal, and so she would be happy. This is presented as a kindness and a mercy on his part, because he feels responsible for her discovering it in the first place and destroying her happiness, and she doesn't deserve that. That's one way to look at it. There is another. I'm sure more, but here's one other way. Another way to look at this is that he unilaterally removed her agency to assuage his own guilt. He's putting her back into a position where she is unaware that she is living a lie. Something he now knows would cause her pain because he's seen her reaction. He's just making life easier for himself and also Lex. He's prioritizing Lex over Ardora. Very fascinating. And it's not presented as a, oh, well, this will keep Lex away from Earth or anything like that. This is how they go about it. I misjudged Superman. He brainwashed Ardora so she'd completely forget that I was Earth's most notorious criminal scientist.
Yes, face it, by his generosity, he gained a double victory over you, Luthor.
His kindness, that his brainwashing of Ardora is owning Lex. Like he has something to kind of hold over him. Like, yes, that's Brainiac's perspective, but this whole thing, it's messed up. And on faraway Earth,
Luthor nearly wrecked my career, but he did it because he thought I had broken the heart of Ardora, whom he worships. She's too fine a girl to be hurt so deeply. That's why I let him escape justice. For the time being, and why I brainwashed his girl.
Superman, what you did for Ardora squares us for now. But be on guard. The universe won't be big enough to hold the two of us the next time we meet. And meet they will again, soon. What you did for Ardora allows me to not have to change or confront my own actions. Thanks, Superman. Now, there is a panel from Action Comics 365 in 1968 where a dying Superman passes Lexor and sees that they've learned about Lex's true nature and are tearing down his statue. And Ardora is running to try and stop them. But nothing else comes of that, so we're just gonna leave that there. It gets one sentence. Now for some lighter and off the beaten path fare. World's Finest 238 from 1976. This is a Super Son story, which places it kind of in an Elseworldsy type of position, or also alternate universe territory. We've done a whole video on the Super Sons, so I will link that below. But this story is The Angel with a Dirty Name by Bob Haney, well known for saying canon, what canon? It has pencils by Dick Dillon, inks by John Calnan. Now, all of the original Super Son stories, so Superman Jr. and Batman Jr., they end up being revealed later on to be a simulation in a supercomputer, and then they're further reclassified as on alternate Earth. So you got two options, supercomputer or alternate universe. But in this adventure, Superman Jr. and Batman Jr. meet Dora Redsun, who's putting on a show by the Kingsman Maximum Security Jail. But when she's there, she suddenly helps Lex Luthor escape. For she is not just Dora, but Ardora Jr. And the red sun is because she comes from Lexor, which has a red sun. She is the daughter of Lex and Ardora, fully grown up, whom he never knew about because he never goes back. That's not actually the reason they give, but in my heart, that's the reason it should be. No, it's because her mom was so ashamed for not having a son. You claim you are my own daughter, Ardora, from the planet Lexor, but I never knew you existed. I was born years ago while you were away on Earth. Mother was so ashamed I was not a son. She hid my existence and growing up years from you. But now, beloved father, I'm here to prove myself worthy to bear the noble name Luthor. So based on the editor's note they give to when they reference Superman 168, which is also before they got married. So now we can present it as, is this an out of wedlock thing that she was hiding for all these years? Because based on that editor's note, that's what we could infer. It's not what we're meant to infer, most likely, but let's have some fun. And if that was the case, Lex and Ardora truly are evenly matched. Villain Ardora arc when? Maybe soon. Now Dora needs Lex because a terrible plague has struck Lexor, one that makes the people obese giants. But little does Dora know that Lex engineered this disease. I secretly left a germ time bomb on Lexor, which later triggered off the giantism plague. Should I be again imprisoned on Earth, I knew my Lexorians would try to free me and return me to my adopted planet, where I'd quickly heal the victims with the antidote I secreted in my hidden laboratory. But I never expected my rescuer would be my own daughter. How she resembles my beloved wife. It'll be so good to see her and all the others again. And Ardora Sr., she's one of the victims that Lex needs to cure, so now he has extra motivation. They want us to take this plague seriously, especially when it starts to just go really out of control, but it's hard because they're also playing it like it's really silly. Never fear, my two Ardoras. I am off to my lab to quickly prepare an antidote, for am I not the greatest scientist in the universe? Oh, yes, yes, father. And then we'll be one happy reunited family. Oh, Dora, you know he's just gonna say he's gotta go to Earth to get some milk. This story is pretty wild, and Lex ends up having to recreate his antidote after things go wrong. And so he has to ally with the Super Sons to do so. Also, Superman Jr. gets infected. Eventually, everyone gets cured. And Dora, having learned her father triggered the plague, which looked like it was gonna doom the planet, makes him go back to Earth to pay his debt. The next time we see Ardora that is not a flashback, an active story, we're gonna be deep in the Bronze Age, super close to Crisis on Infinite Earths. And this is going to be a much more Bronze Age outing in terms of storytelling and tone. And it has a very specific purpose. It's trying to set up a darker Lex. They're trying to do something different with him, which is very interesting because then they're going to do a really big pivot post-Crisis. The shift to businessman Lex. But they're trying to take Lex more seriously, and Cary Bates will have been doing that throughout his time on Superman. You'll see it in some of the Lex stories. There's an attempt to reconcile / explore some of the threads from these Silver Age stories, and here it's focusing on the Lexor ones. And so we come to Action Comics 544 from 1983. The story is Luthor Unleashed, and it's by Cary Bates with art by Kurt Swan and inks by Murphy Anderson. It's also worth knowing that this story is written by Cary Bates, who did submit the idea for the story where Ardora first appeared, even though she was Thrala. So it's kind of interesting to see the evolution also in that way. Now, when it comes to the shift in storytelling, you really see here the difference between the Bronze and Silver Ages. The Bronze Age, especially this late into it, has much more of a focus on emotional pathos, drama in a more serious, targeted way, less so than in passing with the adventures / sci-fi happenings taking the stage. Sometimes the drama could veer a bit more camp, and sometimes the emotional moments could be brief, and the reader will be left to kind of fill in some of those gaps themselves. The Bronze Age, however, takes a bit more of a melodramatic, focused tone, where it sometimes will just spend lengths of time exploring the emotional reasoning behind things for the characters. So the tone here is quite different, and this story is going to set out to try and explore Lex's obsession with Superman. Why is it there? What drives him, and is he doomed for it to always cost him everything? Now, all of these themes, in all fairness, are present in the Silver Age stories. They're just not pulled upon, but they're there and you can see them. So there is stuff to play with. So the story isn't coming out of nowhere. Those stories did show that Lex had his own paradise, but could not stay there. And so we see here a bit of a new kind of genesis for the level of hatred that Lex has for Superman. Also, we get to see Bronze Age Superman here, and he can be quite menacing at times.
This was your lucky day, Luthor. I want you to know I was never so tempted to turn my superpowers loose on a mortal man. If I hadn't intercepted you when I did, your latest scheme for world domination would have cost millions of lives. I know you're in no condition to leave the scene, not with the serious injuries you picked up during your crash landing. You'll probably pass out before I get back, but I guarantee you'll find yourself in a solitary confinement cell when you wake up.
The story really does paint a picture of how much the two dislike each other and why they would. Also, this cover page is great. Superman doesn't realize it yet, but this time he's pushed me beyond the point of no return. Now, Lex manages to summon one of his robots to help him. He's that badly injured, and it puts him in a rocket that sets course for Lexor. Perhaps this has not been a defeat, Master, as much as a second chance, a fateful opportunity for renewal, if not regeneration. Now here we see that Ardora is once more in her role of loyally waiting, but we do get a bit more of a personality and an acknowledgement that this costs her. She's settling for the best she can get, but she's not entirely happy about it. It's something that again was there in the Silver Age, but they didn't pull on it. It was presented more as that's just what a dutiful love interest does, but here you see that there is a bit more to it. It's him, Nogu. My beloved husband has once again journeyed across half a galaxy to be at my side. He appears injured. We must take him to the healing center at once. She believes that he loves her, and he does, but she's so dedicated to that belief that she's willing to kind of endure anything, and that's sad. It's not necessarily pleasant or the strongest character trait, but it is something. Now, meanwhile, Superman had tracked Luthor back to his lair. When he sees he's not there, in frustration, he just destroys everything. He starts to think about how Lex must be planning something truly terrible that's gonna hurt a lot of people. Now, his actions have mortally damaged the robot, who launches one of Lex's backup plans, and as he dies, he thinks that his master will be proud of him, because this robot over time has gained sentience and is very loyal to Luthor, and also has some of his hatred for Superman. The thing is, and here's the tragic element of the story, this is one of those stories where at the start at least, Lex wasn't planning anything because he's received some great news. He's learned that he has a son, and no, Ardora is not hiding him, she just had no way to tell him because he didn't leave a way for her to communicate with him, which is really awful because he says that he would have come back if he knew. He vows that he's going to be a better man, and him and Ardora here have a better relationship in that he's confessed to her that he is a criminal. She knows this. It's something that she too is keeping a secret from everybody else. So again, there's another layer there. She's complicit in that, and that's really interesting, and they don't explore that here, and they're exploring so much, but not that. But she's trying to encourage him that he should stay here where he's loved and worshipped. She can fix him. From this day forward, Ardora, I vow to become a new man. A man who will stay where he belongs, here, with the family he has always secretly longed for. My life as a criminal on Earth, the never-ending hate war I've always waged against Superman. All of it seems such a pathetic, wasted life now. I can't erase my sordid past, but I can put it behind me. Outside, darling, listen to the cheering. Here on Lexor, you've always been worshipped as a hero, a champion among men. Hear me, my Lexorian friends. Faithful and true, I am deeply touched by the glorious homecoming festivities you have staged in my honor, which is a callback to one of the Silver Age stories. I realize now what a fool I was for spending so much of my life on my native Earth, when Lexor is where I really belong. And so he pledges himself to Lexor, to the people there, to improving their life through science, and for a time things are really happy. He's enjoying his life, he loves his family, but it's not enough. And here the story starts to really try and interrogate why he left. Why can't he stop thinking about Superman? Because although he hasn't said anything, all he can think about is how much he hates Superman, how much he wants to destroy him. He can't be happy without it. And he's just trying to figure out why. Was it this obsessive hatred for Superman that warped me into what I am? Or do I hate the Kryptonian with an all-consuming rage that has been part of an evil nature he only brought to the surface? Is there no way I will ever be free of this curse? However, even more tragedy is brewing, because Lex manages to find the secret chamber full of all this ancient technology, which does seem to be a bit of a callback to the original stories about Lexor and how they were once this advanced race, but then now they weren't. Rainbow crystals, not even once. And on Earth, his plan activated by his robot, it goes off, and Lex does hear about it, so now he knows that Superman is on his way. Once he's confirmed the satellite is indeed mine, it will be merely a matter of time before he deduces I have come here, to the one planet in the galaxy where I'm revered as a hero. My repentance on Lexor will mean nothing to him. He will take me away from you and Lex Jr., or he will die trying. Oh, Lex. Dear sweet Lex. Now, Lex has discovered a weakness at the planet's core, and he's fixed it with a neutral rod, so the planet doesn't explode like Krypton. parallels, but at the same time, a mystery marauder, who will have a costume that will be familiar to some contemporary readers, is starting to commit acts of vandalism. And Ardora notices something when Lex is discussing it, that he seems a bit too into it. He's giving criminal vibes. And so she just straight up asks him if he has anything to do with it. And he swears that he doesn't, but that's not the case. He's secretly testing out his new battle armor. But he's lying to keep Ardora happy. But as one can also see, he is happier now. He seems more genuinely happy testing this out than he did during his time with his family, or at least it's competing with it. There are some shades here of the prior Defender arc, only it's a darker shade. Now Superman arrives coated in plot armor, special sunscreen, so the red sun is not affecting him. So he still has powers for this fight. Why the hurry, Kryptonian, unless you're worried that red sunscreen of yours might wear off before you've speared me out of range of Lexor's red sun.
Luthor, you never did know when to shut up.
And watching the man she loves through a teary-eyed vision of shattered dreams. Oh, Lex, why did it all have to end? I'm a baby. However, now that it's falling apart, the truth is revealed, and Lex dons his new battlesuit, one that will be familiar to contemporary readers. Because a part of this was to upgrade Lex to make him seem a bit more threatening and add to his arsenal, as well as to try and confront this emotional layer. And here he just snaps. He blows his cover. He reveals that he's a criminal to the people of Lexor. His hatred for Superman just overcomes him. What all of this is meant to add to and culminate in is the tragic end of this story. This one's meant to hit you in the feels. In his madness, Lex strikes his own neutral rod. It bounces off Superman, dooming the planet, his wife, and son.
Lexor is doomed, and there's absolutely nothing Luthor or I can possibly do to save his wife and son and planet.
That hits really hard, that last panel where he's just grasping her fingers but can't get there. It does hit emotionally. It simultaneously feels like a bit of a waste of Ardora, Lex Jr., and Lexor. Two things can be true at the same time. And don't worry, in case you didn't catch the Krypton parallel, the story flat out tells you
how chilling it was to watch helplessly as Luthor's uncontrollable hatred triggered his planet's destruction. A catastrophe that parallels the tragic demise of my planet, Krypton.
Yes, we understand, Cal. He did it to himself, and that's why it really hurts. Now, in keeping with the Silver Age stories, Lex blames Superman for this. This is Superman's fault. And it's meant to be that he's so blinded by grief that all that introspection that he was working towards earlier, it's gone. All he can focus on now is Superman. There's nothing else in the way. There's nothing left. And this is meant to set up the new revenge arc. And then we get to see this nice splash page by George Perez of the new costume, the new fit. Now this story, I get what he was trying to do, and on many levels it does work. It's attempting to explore the depth of Lex's hatred and the intertwined nature of their relationship. It's trying to assign more meaning and depth to this rivalry than Superman made me lose my hair, which is the classic Silver Age origin of their hatred. There's a bit more to it than that, but that's a huge part of it. This story is attempting to position Lex as fundamentally broken in some way, consumed by this obsession. And there are some Shakespearean elements to this. That does work, and it is pulling those threads from those classic Silver Age stories. It's a well-constructed, impactful work that makes sense narratively. You can see why it goes the route it does. It really examines why didn't Lex stay on Lexor? This is very much exploring that. Because he can't, because he's obsessed, because he has a problem. Where it doesn't work as well is that it doesn't give the obsession a firm root. It's just kind of, that's just how Lex is. Which, while it could make sense, coming at this from a different reader perspective as I was, and having seen the different attachments they give into the Lex Clark rivalry later on, I personally feel that they do manage to reconcile this later when they come back to the Silver Age, but lose some of the hair aspects and focus more on the idea that Clark and Lex knew each other as children, or at least are in the same vicinity, and then you get to see how they grew up, how they interacted, their different circumstances, and how they're very different people, and how that fuels the type of rivalry they'll eventually have. However, that's obviously the bias I have from the period that I came to Lex and Clark in. 544 to me, while an excellent and emotional story, it does go a tad too far, particularly in the Ardora and Lex Jr. department. Ardora and Lex's son fall into the same role that Ardora has occupied all this time, a prop. And I postulate that this level of sadness could have been achieved with Ardora and Lex Jr. alive. You could still blow up Lexor if you want to, if you need the Krypton parallel. And this would also play with the Silver Age stories. What if, instead of dying, Ardora finally gave up on Lex? She leaves him. She's been this loyal support this entire time, always believing. Maybe after seeing him just crash out like that and be willing to ruin everything despite all that she's done, how loyal she's been, she can't take it anymore. And she decides, you know what? It's genuinely over. Her, Lex Jr., it's done. He's not welcome on Lexor, or if Lexor exploded, you know what? She's not coming back with him to Earth. She's leaving and going somewhere else. Maybe if you want to really add insult to injury, Superman can even help her do that. Then you end up at the same place. This safe haven, the special place where he's worshipped and loved that he took for granted, it's gone. He's spurned it and now he can't have it anymore. He can no longer return, and you can still also have the whole this is Superman's fault. Now as for how it stands, and as for what's here, it is a well-written death scene. It does elicit an emotional response. You feel it. When I read it the first time, little goosebumps, just ooh, sad. Just personally to me, it feels like there are other avenues that could have been explored that would also have potentially opened up the avenue for more stories. That's always what I'm looking at when it comes to character death. Just the idea of, does this close off more stories than it opens? I'm always looking for an opening. But again, I get what they're going for, and I can really appreciate this story for going so hard and really trying to elicit this gravitas to Lex. Unfortunately, it casts Ardora and her potential aside to do so. But what do you think? I really want to hear your opinion about this, because we're all shaped by the time that we come to the stories and the different interactions we've had with the different pieces of media. Smallville definitely played a huge part in how I look at the Lex and Clark relationship. Now, despite her death, this is not the end of Ardora, but it is the end of this Ardora. Her time as Lex's wife in the main line seems to be done, time of recording. Now we have to go all the way down to post-Flashpoint, so past 2011 and into the New 52. We're going to see another version that does also pull on some threads from the Silver Age. And yes, there's a brief couple of panels where you see her in Infinite Crisis, but she doesn't do anything. Now, for modern Ardora, we need to hop to the Darkseid War and issue 45 of Justice League, Act 2, After Death. This is written by Jeff Johns, art by Francis Manapul, and it's from the year 2015. This storyline would lead directly into Rebirth. And then also there's supposed to be some Doomsday Clock stuff there. There were delays. Extreme cliff notes for the Darkseid War. It involves the Justice League and more, getting involved in a war between Darkseid and the Anti-Monitor. This is also where you get Grail, Darkseid's daughter. Now in 45, Superman brutally beats Lex after he becomes the god of strength, and Lex is just left there on Apocalypse in an opening that has some echoes of that last Action Comics story we just looked at.
Up, up, and away.
After his beating, Lex is found by Ardora. I'm Ardora, leader of the Forgotten People.
Is that supposed to impress me?
If you knew of us, it would.
What do you want with me?
Maybe nothing. There is a prophecy on Apocalypse about a man who will come save them, bringing hope, a man from Metropolis, an orphan son of farmers. Ardora asks Lex if he is that man, and he says yes, in a remix of Lex claiming Superman's role on Lexor in the Silver Age. But this Ardora is not the meek Ardora of old. She's fulfilling the role of a different trope, and that is of the hard-as-nails rebel leader. This Lex and Ardora do not have a romantic relationship. Instead, she's a bit more there as a tough guide. She needs him to be trained up so that he can help her people. With Darkseid's death, his Omega effect has been unleashed. It will return here to Apocalypse. We will contain it. In you. If you are a hero worthy of this power as you claim, you will survive. If not, you will die. I see a red star. Not a red star. The Omega effect. It returns. Ooh, red star, red sun. Nice callback. The test is now human. Lex survives the test and becomes the god of Apocalypse. Now, they do spend some more time together in the Lex Luthor Darkseid War special, Justice League Darkseid War Lex Luthor. It's written by Francis Manapul with art by Bong Dazzo, colors by Hi-Fi. But this is much more a story about Lex and his past anger. Ardora is there to show him Apocalypse and what's at stake, and also for him to bounce his anger off of a little bit. That pain you feel is the infinite power of the Omega erupting from your every pore. Unless you can learn how to control it, you will die. Now, the interesting thing to note about this is that despite some of the changes in her positioning and the removal of romance, Ardora is still very much a prop. She still doesn't have too much of her own agency. She's still very much there to facilitate Lex's development. She's here to show that Lex is flawed, that he can't accept help, that he needs to change and let go of all the anger. You're about to die for me. Why? Because I believe in hope. You know what's really funny about this? Not funny, haha, maybe funny, ironic, is that with the setup here, there is more of a grounding for the romance, but they eschew it. Before we get to the end of Ardora, I will just say here, I find this version of Ardora equally flat, which is fascinating, and I know some will disagree. They will feel that because she's no longer a love interest, she has more agency. To me, the simple removal of that aspect does not necessarily equate to her having more agency. She still needs to be her own character and have her own full drive and motivation. Here she has a little bit more in that she wants to save Apocalypse, and not just that she wants to be Lex, but it's still a singular flat drive. She's still not the most nuanced or expanded upon character. Lack of romance doesn't automatically equal good and deep. In short, both versions have untapped potential. Are you all right? How did you do that? I didn't. You needed to open yourself up to me. and therefore it. Now, the end of the Darkseid War sees Lex as another protector donning Superman's symbol, first on Apokolips and later on Earth, where he abandons Ardora and her people, just like the Silver Age. You see her again in Superman 33 in 2017, the Superman who would be king, written by Peter J. Tomasi and Patrick Gleason, pencils Doug Mankey, inks Jaime Mendoza, and colors Will Quintana. Here, Ardora brings Lex back to the planet to help her people. We've missed you, Lex Luthor, god of Apokolips.
Lex does not really want to do this, and so he summons
Superman and admits the truth that it was always Superman who was the person in the prophecy, not him. One could look at this as a light remix on her learning that Lex was a criminal in the Silver Age, but this plot point falls so naturally off of him lying to her in Darkseid War that I'm not sure if it's intentionally reaching that far back, or if I'm just looking for it because I like to make connections. Now, Ardora is featured in issues 33 to 36. That's this little Darkseid Rebellion arc. And by the end, she's left to rule her people, anointed by Superman. But I'm just a soldier.
Some of the finest leaders are.
Thank you. We will all do our best, Superman.
I know you will.
And so it does wrap up her little mini arc nicely in that she believes in hope and now she gets to be the hope for her people. But to this point in time of recording, they haven't used her since. Not really. Is that better than being dead, or is that just another form of death?
because it's comics. Either way, she could come back.
Now, time of recording, that's it for the main universe. Always gotta say time of recording because you never know. And we have more to go because it looks like we might be getting a version of Ardora in the Absolute universe. And potentially, we will finally get evil Ardora. We shall see, or maybe she'll still be good.
Sunset and green tea. It's a wonderful life, isn't it?
Well, I certainly think so.
It's strange. I was an angry young man, Dora, envious of others for their power, their popularity, even their looks. But right here, in this moment, I can't think of a single thing I want.
Can't you? Because the children are in bed.
Hold that thought.
That phone, always the worst timing.
No rest for the wicked, as they say. It'll just be a moment, darling.
Now, aside from the character design, very much looking like Ardora, there are some thematic elements that would make sense as to why this is her, and that would really work well if it is. For example, Ardora is introduced in the story where Lex and Brainiac first team up. And here in the Absolute Universe, we have Brainiac seeking to add Lex to that version of the Justice League. In a way, teaming up. Not that Lex knows this. So again, there's that double cross element built in, which was part of their original story dynamic. Lex also seems to have this idyllic life where he wants for nothing. And now it seems like he may be removed from it, or that could be shattered. Just like the kind of energy he has when he was on Lexor. And all of this just makes me hope that it's not just a throwaway design and kind of name reference. I really want it to be her, and I wanted to do something this time. Both past versions have potential that isn't fully tapped. Now, if it is the future and she is a character doing things, huzzah! If it's not, she's someone else, or she's just a background cameo Easter egg reference, sad, single tear, small violin. Now, as mentioned, Ardora is a character with tons of potential. Arguably the most unmined is in the Silver Age. That one was so close to something deeper. It was just there underneath the surface, and you can see it in that Bronze Age story, but they don't dig her up along with Lex. All she needed was a tad more agency, and it would really have enhanced what was going on. I almost wish the leader elements from the second version were attached to the first, because there are so many directions to take her outside of Lex Luthor's wife. However, that can be a nice anchor starting point for her in the universe, but then there are ways that one can go about making that a really interesting position for her to occupy. And also by expanding her own goals and motivations, she could become quite the powerhouse character in her own right. One could break her off too, but there's nothing wrong with having characters who are attached. Power couples. There are so many questions that were there to be played with, especially after you saw the Bronze Age version where she was accepting of his criminal past, and that she was hoping he would change. But there were also vestiges in the Silver Age where one sees that she can be just as ruthless as he could be. Now, of course, miles may vary. Some may feel that there was more potential with her as the resistance leader and eventual leader of the Forgotten People. Now, of course, that is also pulling on some classic threads because she did have some leaderly qualities in that the people of Lexor listened to her. Now, it wasn't entirely clear whether that was because she was attached to Lex or whether it was because of her own position, something else to explore. Now, regardless of all of this, there are some cool stories that feature Ardora, even if she's not the most prominent part of most of them. And some of them she's questionably utilized. But there's something about that concept of that ride or die attached to a villain that people can find appealing. Sometimes I just sit and think about these things, ponder them. Realistically, would it be the most healthy relationship? Mileage varies and potentially not likely, but that's what the fictional world is for, to explore all these avenues, because there the control is in the hands of the creator to present all of the factors for the reader to put in so that you can explore those kind of things, the good and the bad. We'll see what happens. As it stands, Ardora is a fascinating piece of comic book history, and she has a decent amount of continuity for the era in which she debuts. And the stories that she's in, some of them really leave an impression, so it's not surprising that she was brought back years later. Now, some questions for you. What do you think is a cool course for Ardora to take? Which version of her did you like? Do you not like her at all? No thank you.
What other obscure characters should we talk about for way too long?
Please share all your thoughts. Thanks so much for taking some time out of your day spent discussing comics with me. I always appreciate it. Please do all the YouTube things. Like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the bell notifications so that you never miss a vid. There'll be more videos coming soon. On what? We'll see. Wherever our whims take us. Thanks so much for taking the time. Bye-bye.
You gotta listen to your heart, listen to the beat, listen to the rhythm, living on the street. Open up your eyes, open up your ears, get together and make things better by working together. It's a simple message, but it comes from the heart. Believe in yourself.
Okay, enough Arthur. Ardora.